Good morning again, everybody. This is going to be our round 3 modern event. We're just hydrating and getting ready to go here. Um, it, Modern, of course, being a format I love to talk about, being a big fan both of the decks, of the metagame environment, and then the people who tend to play them. We've got a little bit of a personal treat for me this round. Sometimes you end up with people in Modern who just like to play whatever is the best deck, whatever is the most powerful, and sometimes you have people who play what they play. And this round we have a pairing. It looks like a burn mirror.
It is a burn mirror.
So this is going to go fast. One of our local legends here with Clint Reiman, who is a big fan of burn. If you can find someone who... Okay. I didn't know you had a way to override that because I had said it and the camera's on here. So,
Gotcha.
Oh sure.
Let us know when we're good.
Oh yeah, they've got audio.
Oh.
The chat seemed to suggest we have audio.
Oh, okay, good.
So yeah.
All right, good.
Yeah.
So, so again, continue your story of Clint.
Sure. If you can find somebody that looks at you the way Clint Reiman looks at Lightning Bolt, you will live a happy and long life.
That you will. And Lightning Bolt, let's admit this. We have both played with Clint for many years now. Lightning Bolt loves him back just as much.
And we've got, we're getting the names updated, and the life totals should be updated here shortly, too. Michael Peterson, Clint Reiman. And do not believe the overlay. It is a burn mirror, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
This will be fast and furious. Anything that stands out at first glance looking over the lists, Clint had to scratch out his lands for different fetch lands. Sideboards are different.
Sideboards are different.
Definitely different.
And I mean, there's a lot of different choices you can make, but they're not that much different.
Nope. Clint running the 2 Path to Exile, 4 full Core Firewalker, despite his express dislike for that card. 2 Skullcrack, 4 Smash to Smithereen, 2 Deflecting Palm, and a single ley line of Combustion.
So I can see all of Clint's hand right there. He's got Goblin Guide, he's got Skullcrack, he's got his 2 lands, which is the lands you want. He's got the Swift Spear. Clint, this is a hand made in heaven for Clint.
Chat says that Michael Peterson is a local legend in the cities, which is equally outstanding. The lists look very similar. Michael Peterson running a 1-of Grim Lavamancer in the main deck too, which I'm a big fan of right now.
I love Matok. He is one of my favorite cards, and if you don't know the story of Matok, let me tell you, while we're mulliganing, I'm going to tell you a quick story of Matok. Matok is Grim Lavamancer's name. He is named Matok. In development, he was originally a 1-cost legend that was just red, tap, and shock to deal 2 damage to target creature. He was Matok, the Grim Lavamancer. So, he has a name. His name is Matok, and he wrecks people's face. Now, why he didn't get printed as such is because this is before many legend rule changes, and the first person to play Matok would get to keep Matok. And it wrecked their play testing for obvious reasons. So, that is why he was not a legend, but why you always see him with exactly the same face and with the obstinate familiar wrapped around his shoulder. And that, everybody, has been your magic flavor for this round.
It might be for the whole day. I'm not good at flavor. We've got a Goblin Guide. Now, Burn Mirrors, what do you think the actual crux or the fulcrum for Burn Mirrors are typically?
I mean, the coin flip does matter a lot. You're trying to get your 20 damage upstairs before your opponent does. The cards off of Goblin Guide don't matter because they don't deal 3 damage. Giving your opponent's land, you just don't care. You can kind of see what's coming, but you know what your opponent's going to do. They're going to do the same thing you're trying to do. Yeah. So the lists are very similar.
Yep.
So
in lieu of the 1 Grim Lavamancer, Clint Reiman is running a Clint special in the form of Thunderous Wrath.
Hey, miracles happen.
Yep.
And
Clint on the crackback is going to take 1 from the Monastery Swift Spear.
Yeah, so I found it interesting. So I never question Clint in what he's playing when he's sequencing his deck. He did lead with the Goblin Guide, not the Swift Spear. So this is I'll probably see the Swift Spear this turn, probably followed by some type of one of his 1-mana spells.
And I haven't had a chance to catch what Michael Peterson is holding, but I suspect this is going to be a flurry of spells back and forth here.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of blocking that happens until
No.
mid-game, which in this instance is turn 4 or 5 for the
And
burn
actually,
matchups.
I'm going to take back what I said. I think what we're seeing... Ooh, maybe Clint already told him what we're doing.
And that's a Searing Blaze.
Yep.
I like this line from Clint.
Yep. You clear off the opponent, because that Swift Spear, if unanswered, will be good for about 4 to 6 damage. Reveals a Goblin Guide of his own on top, and passes back.
So that turns this into a 5 damage turn for Clint, which I
Yeah.
think is terrific.
Yeah, it's exactly what he wants. I mean, Goblin Guide's already
Sunbed
been good for
Cannon
4
from
damage.
Peterson. It's going to be a little bit of a tax here, but he can still stabilize. There's a Goblin Guide on the crackback.
Yep.
The activation sees a Monastery Swift Spear for Clint.
So now...
I'm going to hold the stream deck here so that we can make our adjustments to life totals.
Yeah, because this is going to be fast and furious.
Suspending a Rift Bolt there.
All right. So Clint now has double Swift Spear, which I think is... So there's Goblin Guide and Swift Spear, and it's just come back for 5.
That puts Clint at...
Reveals Searing Blaze on the other side from double Goblin. Reveals Searing Blaze twice, as you saw.
Clint still has 3 cards in hand. The Rift Bolt off the top will put him to 12, and there should be a Swift Spear from Michael next turn, too.
The question from Michael is now, do you mitigate the creature damage, or are you killing any of the creatures instead? Because, I mean, that's 5 damage on table from just creatures alone before Clint even starts firing any spells. I think right now they're going back through and double-checking the math.
Okay.
But I think we've kept up. Because there's... I mean,
Mark can tell us if chat seems to think I missed anything.
No. Okay. Okay.
Phil is exactly correct. It's a 61st card from Mr. Reiman as well. That's going to be 3 damage up top to Clint.
Okay, so he's...
If he's got the 3rd land, there's a way in which he can... Oh, but he's short 1.
Yeah, does not have the land to go with it.
Oh, man. Michael's hand is still really gassier. It's just a slower, and this is the coin flip conversation we'd already talked about.
Yep.
Being on the back foot in the burn mirror isn't always the kiss of death. In this situation, Clint's starting hand was so many creatures.
It was kind of exactly what you wanted here, because there's a certain number of the burn spells that go only upstairs. They can't answer the creatures.
Yeah.
And the creatures are, if unanswered, are good for more damage, which is proven right here. Like, that first Goblin Guide has dealt 6 on his own. The second Goblin Guide has dealt 4 on his own.
My favorite part about this matchup currently is that both of these burn players are consummate connoisseurs of basic mountains.
We can call them experts in their field here. So,
yeah, just
more Swift Spear.
The choice of lands here. Oh,
and I think, yep, he's just going to swing all out and make his opponent do stuff. And enter his scoop phase, which is the correct response to that. I mean, as a burn player, you also know when you're beaten, too. This is another one of the reasons these games tend to go very fast.
We'll reset this. Big fan of how this played out for both players. Michael wasn't actually sunk there. He just missed that 3rd land.
Mm-hmm.
He still had plays.
Yeah.
The Rift Bolt there, do you think you still go upstairs hoping you rip the land?
I think I would have tried to mitigate the damage coming at me.
Okay.
But that's me. Like, at heart, like, the burn deck is not one that's in my front end wheelhouse.
Sure.
If you ever see me playing, I'm either typically playing, like, my deck of choice in Legacy is either Miracles or Storm.
Oh, sure.
My deck in Modern is Humans that I would typically play. I have played Burn, but it's I don't necessarily know all the sequences, and I don't want to second guess people who from multiple sources are both very experts in their field. From a not dying perspective, I think he was trying to race, but he may have wanted to kill one of the Goblin Guides, because then Clint's only swinging through for 3. it forces Clint to have more cards, but Clint had like 3 cards in hand, and
He
he's
did.
clearly not playing lands. If he was, that's the other thing is like you can see when your opponent's not playing lands, you know they have gas. Like it was real easy for Michael to just extend the hand. You got me. Let's go to game 2 and try it again.
Sure.
So out of the sideboard, I mean, they're both bringing in all of the Firewalkers. We know Clint's dislike of this card. However, he is still playing 4 of this card.
Right.
Because he knows. I think you also deflecting Palm. The hard part is, what do you take out in this matchup? That's my question.
That's a good question. Some of the schools of thought here are Searing Blazes. You're going to ask yourself, are Searing Blazes that good? Are the Eidolons in these instances the card you want to fight over? Having a 61st flex spot with the Thunderous Wrath means Clint can trim on something like that. You can certainly trim on things like Skewer the Critics. You're gonna fight over. I mean, I guess Boros Charm is a non-starter.
I mean,
The lists are so often just boilerplate 4 of that there are places you can trim.
so I mean, maybe is it a choice? Like, are you going to attack their creatures? Are you going to try and just race them? Maybe that's what you have to just make that choice.
Right. With the Mulligan rules changing this year from London, I am convinced that there's probably more that can be done in the way of trimming on things that you don't want to see later. Like Goblin Guides in the matchup tend to be a little bit dodgier when you're on the draw, for example, and you're actually aggressively fighting over top decks.
Yeah.
Fighting through resolved core Firewalkers and looking for top decks. The last thing you want sometimes is to top deck the wrong card, and I think that going forward we're going to see it's going to take years for us to kind of figure the numbers out on it, but in these kinds of weird mirrors where it really is tempo based on life total, you're going to see people start to look at those 4 of copy paste lists.
Yeah, and just kind of change that.
Yeah, and really really aggressively pivot their sideboarding, especially from trimming perspective, looking more and more at the idea that these 4 ofs are sacred cows. There's no reason you can't go down to 3 of in certain situations because the cards are valued so highly if they're in your starting 7 or starting 6 or starting 5, but then any other time in the game they might be worse.
Yeah.
And the burn lists especially have gotten a ton of help on redraws with the new Horizon or Canopy style lands.
Correct.
And I think that matters a lot more in these instances too. I don't know that you always have time in the burn mirrors, but sometimes they do kind of get these matchups kind of get greasy when both players are, they have a resolved Firewalker and they're fighting over the next Firewalker or something.
I mean, this is another one where a lot of the weird, like those trimming choices are going to be relevant. So, as we can see, so Clint's got the full 4 Firewalkers. Michael only has the 2. Also, kind of looking through the list now, Michael has all 4 Skullcracks. Clint only has the 2 Skullcracks that I can see in his list. So we'll see if that plays out as well, because that can be one of the answers to the Firewalker, for your opponent to set up that Firewalker as a blocker, and then watch his Skullcrack just makes it die.
Love seeing the conversation in the chat between so Breezy43 is going to be one Brad Allheiser. And,
Okay.
Phil Gunn, of course, is Gun Daddy P. I do like, so Michael had to take a mulligan.
Yep, he is on his way to 6.
And
well, with the new mulligan rule, he is on his way to 7 and then put 1 down. But
right. And I agree with the conversation happening in the chat. So Phil and Gun Daddy and Breezy are talking about the matchups being about questions like Eidolon is very poor in the mirror.
Correct.
Which makes sense. If you're on the play and you're the first one to it, it can be very good.
Right, because you can just lock your opponent out of spells. So Clint
Goblin
getting
Guide off the top.
And Clint getting a free land off the top.
It looks like, man. It looks like Clint's mana base is not going to be doing him as much damage as Peterson's is off the top, or at the start of the game.
Correct.
That does look like a Spire. Okay, he does have his own Inspiring Vantage.
And there's the Eidolon, just like we were talking about. Being on the play, it's a much more important thing. Now, Clint's already suspended his Riftbolt. I fully suspect Clint to eat his 2 from Riftbolt and immediately remove the Eidolon, because being behind he needs to be able to play his other cards in order to keep going here.
He chose not to cast the Rift Bolt.
Oh, no, he has to cast the Rift Bolt. I think he's just doing things a little out of order here.
Okay. Well,
I mean, he'd already revealed to the Goblin Guide, so we knew what the card was. There's no issues here.
Okay.
You're allowed to do things out of order as long as your end result is the same. And there's, yeah. So he takes the 2 from the, I'll let you, since you've been doing that. He takes the 2, but he has to remove that Eidolon.
This is going to be the Firewalker that he had in his starting 7. No. He's going to suspend another Rift Bolt and Lava Spike here. Interesting.
Yeah. I actually like this. It sets up the Rift Bolt in case his opponent is on another. Like, having proven he's on Eidolon,
Right.
He's got that Rift Bolt preset to just kill the next Firewalker.
There's going to be a Firewalker coming from Michael.
I said Firewalker. I meant Eidolon, but yes.
You looked right at the Firewalker.
I did. And
There's
so
a spike at Clint. The attack reveals Bolt.
it was Lightning Bolt. And there is Matak, the one of. Now, Clint hasn't played or dropped any creatures yet, and Matak is still red. He can't kill the Firewalker, but he can certainly keep sending that 2 damage upstairs. All right. Rift Bolt went upstairs.
Sunbaked Canyon for Clint there.
Little painful to be drawing that land, but
So why aren't we leading on... If you're sitting in Clint's seat here, why aren't we leading on Firewalker from here? Your opponent has 1 card in hand.
that,
You've got to mitigate some damage.
yeah, especially since you have guaranteed 4 coming at you next turn.
Yeah.
Between I need to see what else is in. I have not seen what else is in Clint's hand. So he's got the Firewalker. Oh, he also has a Path to Exile. I'm guessing he's going to Path to Exile. Well, Clint hasn't played any creatures yet. But he's going to Path to Exile something, and then we know he's got the Lightning Bolt. So I think he's sitting back. He's going to kill his opponent's 2 creatures this turn, because Michael's down to, was it 1 card in hand, I believe?
Correct.
Yeah. And Clint is at 9. If Clint has answers to the 2 creatures, Clint being at 9 is a strangely healthy life total when you're playing against Burn.
Despite that being just 3 cards in your deck and
Correct.
everything costing 3.
But you don't have a lot of draw effects in Burn.
Is there a reason is there a reason here he lets the Lavamancer untap?
That I don't have an answer to,
Okay.
because it opens up 2 free damage from the Lavamancer. Maybe Clint keeping his options open against, like, say if Michael had run out a Swift Spear or another Goblin Guide there. Something that could have potentially threatened more than 2 damage. So he's going to Boros Charm.
And that's going to eat the Deflecting Palm, and that's going to kill him.
And that's going to kill him. All right, on to game 3.
Okay.
I mean, Clint fought hard there. Again, like we said, it's hard being on the play. It's hard being on the draw. And then, as you correctly predicted, the Eidolon on turn 2 on the play, exactly where Michael wanted to be.
Yeah.
And now you can see Michael going back to the sideboard. I feel like we're gonna see changes for being on the play versus draw here.
Yeah. I think that's one of the few places, where, despite the reputation Burn sometimes gets for being seemingly a simple or thoughtless deck, what you just saw was very, very tight, narrow margins of play between the 2 players. Clint taking the 2 off of that Rift Bolt immediately makes that Lavamancer actually impactful.
Yes.
And Clint choosing to Lava Spike there, he's setting up his next turn.
And having played against Clint a lot, like, he does a lot of that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Michael does too. From the chat has told us he's a Burn legend in the cities. you know, that's something that those good burn players do, is like they have the math set up 3 turns in advance on how you are going to die, and that's when you play your first land drop. And most burn players, they know the format very well.
Yeah.
They will see you play your first land, and they know what you're doing before you even do. It can be very interesting to watch and play against.
Yeah.
So.
Was there a moment in your estimation that game where either player resolving the Firewalker would have been an actual relevant, like
No.
it would have been an optimal or relevant line given what the board and the resources were?
I don't think so. I think Clint's plan to remove the 2 creatures instead of playing the Firewalker is the better play. Yes, he was at 9. But he's 1 Skullcrack away from just losing,
Sure.
which is, I mean, he won't know how many Skullcracks his opponent's on, but he knows the cards in the format. He's playing 2 of his own, and if he just taps out into Firewalker and he eats a bunch of damage, and he would have taken a point of damage to do it. He would have been at 8 instead of 9, which with Lavamancer on table, Lavamancer puts him to 6, and now he's 2 cards from dead instead of 3, and that's the real relevant part when it comes to burn.
Yeah. So game 3, Clint's on the play in this this burn mirror here. Looks like both players are keeping their starting 7.
We're at least still thinking about it. I mean,
Clint's
Burn's not a...
Clint's got what looks like a Helix.
Okay, see, the only question I have on Clint is how many lands. Well, he's keeping it. I couldn't tell if he was on 2 or 3.
I love burn mirrors personally.
There's a lot of play in the burn mirror. It's a lot of cool interactions.
Are we leading with the Swift Spear or the Goblin Guide? What will it be?
Well, given the choice, having seen what he did in game 1, I assume it will be the Goblin Guide if he can. Yep, there it is. So down to 17. His opponent will go down to 19 or 18. Math.
Sees a Lava Spike off the top.
It's fine. That's, though, 3 damage for 1 mana is like what you're trying to do in burn. Lava Spike is one of the least impactful cards actually in this matchup. Yep. And then his opponent returns suit, and Clint gets a land out of the deal.
How much does that end up mattering in these matchups? The lands off the...
You know what? Clint is going to draw another card, which could be a burn spell, as opposed to that land. So, I mean, it gives him a better chance of drawing a 3 damage spell as opposed to a blank. Because these burn decks do run so tight. But it's random. Like, you have to play the Goblin Guide. Yep.
Another Goblin Guide.
He's just going to jam all the dudes.
Spear, yeah.
Yep, which is exactly what he did in game 1 and what I would expect here. Comes across for 5.
2 guide triggers. There's a Skullcrack there. Maybe next time it'll be a land off the top for Peterson. The race is tight.
All right. They're just Clint's going through, double-checking all the math. I believe we've caught everything. I believe we're on 12-14.
Yep. Now we saw a Skullcrack for Peterson. We know he also has a Lava Spike in hand and a Lightning Bolt, it looks like.
Yeah.
The question becomes, the bottleneck for this matchup oftentimes is 2 mana.
Does he have a land?
He does not.
Oh.
And that's why I was saying the
Yep.
bottleneck here is usually 2 mana. Either you get to double spell in a turn, or you cast one of your really powerful 2 mana spells in the form of Eidolon of the Great Revels.
Yep. And now because of that, he's got to start throwing his burn spells as damage control.
Yep. And his Goblin Guide has to run blocking here, and
Yep.
the game is going to grind. And if Michael finds the second land he needs, he'll be in a good, maybe not great, but good position to start trading 1 good card for life.
Right. And I think he's got a turn, maybe even 2. Clint looks like he's
going to Helix here.
That's real good right here, especially since Michael does not have his mana to cast his Skullcrack. Helix, when it resolves and you get both halves, is key in the burn mirror.
Oh, dear. He's going to try to run it again.
Yep.
It's still a Swift Spear.
That's one of the hardest parts, is when your Goblin Guide reveals the card you don't need, and and there's the hand.
He's just going to hand it out. All right. Well, that was a good matchup.
All right.
Michael,
I'm going to
you
pop
get
out
our-
quick and check on our backup match.
All right. There, I've selected the right camera this time. So there was our burn mirror, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully we get some more burn at the top tables the rest of the day. I happen to like what the deck presents. I like what that, I guess its lines and its position in the metagame is, or what it gives us.